Welcome back to Tech Twins, the Israel and Dubai podcast, where we explore the people, ideas, and innovation driving the region forward. Today, we're hosting Yariv Becher, VP of Business Development and Partnerships at Startup Nation Central, an organization playing a key role in connecting Israeli innovation with partners across the globe. We'll dive into the evolution of Israel's high-tech ecosystem, how it remained resilient amid crisis, and the growing importance of innovation diplomacy. Let's jump in. Yariv, let's start at the beginning. Tell us about yourself. Tell the listeners about yourself.
Thank you, Achiad. It's a pleasure being here. It's always a pleasure visiting Dubai and the UAE.
It's a pleasure to have you.
And seeing the region, it's great. A bit about myself. So I started, basically my dream was to be a historian. I studied history and sort of a temp student job, started working at Checkpoint Software, which is today one of Israel's leading cybersecurity companies. At the time, it wasn't called cybersecurity. It was called IT security.
IT security.
Yeah, it's like...
Before cyber became a thing.
Exactly, years ago. And what started as a student job ended to be 8 years working in the finance department, then business operations. And then at some point I wanted to do something else, and my wife saw a publication that the ministry, at the time it was called Ministry of Industry, Trade and Labor, today it's the Ministry of Economy, had a cadet course for commercial attaches. And she said, you should apply. And I said, no, it's not for me. And so she submitted the forms for me. I got accepted.
Wow.
Spent 13 years in the Ministry of Economy. In that time period, did a number of roles, but one of them was I was Israel's commercial attaché to the U.S. Midwest, based in Chicago, spent there 5 years, and then did a similar role in the U.K. And after 13 years, I got an offer I couldn't refuse from Startup Nation Central to lead innovation diplomacy. And I'll share with you what that is. And so I joined Startup Nation Central about 4 years ago.
So, yeah, I mean, now we understand, your personal journey, your background. What is Startup Nation Central?
Startup Nation Central is a nonprofit organization, non-government, founded 13 years ago. If anyone read, if you're familiar with the book Startup Nation, inspired by the book that came out in 2009 and tells the story. Basically, the book Startup Nation coined the term Startup Nation, looking at the Israeli tech industry and trying to figure out what that odd thing is, how this small country in the Middle East with no natural resources has become such a global tech hub. And so inspired by the book, our founders and funders, we are funded by philanthropy, supporters of Israel that believe that by supporting our organization, they contribute to the growth of Israel's economy. They created Startup Nation Central as an organization that is focused on helping the tech industry in Israel grow and strengthen and flourish by connecting it to the world, helping global corporates, multinational corporations, investors, governments tap into the innovation ecosystem in Israel by understanding their needs and helping them navigate, making the connection for them, and then also working with them to take those opportunities and actually convert them into actual partnerships.
So it's not about one company, right? It's about the ecosystem, about the bigger picture, and about driving the Israeli ecosystem forward.
Exactly.
And what do you do like on a day-to-day basis? Where do you create the most impact?
So first of all, we do a number of things. We're an interesting organization. We created, we maintain, we manage the most extensive digital platform that encompasses the whole ecosystem in Israel. It's called Startup Nation Finder. Basically, it's your PitchBook or TechCrunch, but only for Israel. So every innovation entity in Israel, from an early stage startup to a growth company to publicly traded companies to the multinational corporations that are active in Israel, investors, accelerators, whatever, they are in Finder and you can find them there. But it's much more than that. We have periodic reports and spotlights and different insights that we publish for people that want to keep up to date with what's going on in Israel. So they have digested knowledge and insight based on the data that we have. So that's one of the things that we do. And the second thing is sort of an added layer, the human in the loop part, is that we actively engage with corporations and investors on a one-to-one basis. So we really do a deep dive with them to understand what are the challenges that they're trying to solve, what sort of technology solutions they would need, and what is the right way for them to engage with the Israeli ecosystem, because different corporates have different needs and different structures, and we as an organization and also the ecosystem in general are, I think one of the characteristics is being agile and being able to adapt. So we understand the way that they work,
of course,
find the needs for them, and then make the introductions and handhold them to let them grow and prosper.
And I mean, there are many Israeli startups, right? Many Israeli startups come to you, I believe, with their propositions. How can you catch a good idea from the start?
So we do a number of things. First of all, I think it's important to understand that, so the way that I explain is that we work from the outside in. Okay, we understand the needs of the corporates and what they're looking for. And then we have our finger on the pulse. As I said, we have our Finder platform. We work with many stakeholders, different communities, accelerators. So we know the industry, and we have our own in-house analysts. And we work with the VCs, so we're familiar with the different startups that are out there and what they're offering. What is their track record engagement with other partners, so we know how to make the right fit.
And I mean, you've been close to the Israeli startups for years, right? I mean, as a public servant with the Israeli Ministry of Economy, and now through Startup Nation Central. How would you describe the evolution of Israel's high-tech ecosystem? I mean, you do have a very, very long array of looking through it from a very spot-on perspective.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to see, and actually, so we just came out with our Q3 report of 2025, and we see a trend that has been going on for a number of years, and that is the maturity and growth of the ecosystem. So when the book Startup Nation came out in 2009, I believe that at the time, the total private funding investment in Israel at the time was a bit over $2 billion in 2009. In 2025, we haven't finished the year yet, but as you see in our Q3 report, we're almost at $12 billion.
Wow.
Okay. So definitely a growth in investments. And at the time, especially, I remember when I joined the ministry, the concern was that there are too many small startups, early exits, that the valuations are low, that the startups sell out very quickly. And what we have seen over the past 20 years is that companies are now growing. Basically, what you're seeing is a maturity not just of the companies, but also of the founders. So founders that did a first round, an early exit, now they have their second or third venture, and their next challenge, they've done well enough for themselves, and now they're looking for the next challenge, and that is to create a growth company. Yeah. And so you see all these unicorns now in Israel, right? Wix and Monday and Gong, and the list is quite long. That is what we have seen in terms of maturity, and you see that also in the investment numbers of the last year. You see fewer rounds, but much bigger, larger amounts, later stage investments.
So as things stand today, I mean, if back in the early 2000s we could say Israel is a startup nation of many startups being created in Israel and then sold to big corporations. How would you describe Israel now? What nation are we?
Yeah, people tend to use the term scale-up nation or growth nation. I think is a better example. But what is important is that startup mindset is still there, and that is something that is our competitive edge. Okay, that entrepreneurial mindset that we have. That in Startup Nation Central we coined the term impatient innovation. Okay, meaning now again I have 3 kids. When we were raising them, we told them that patience is a virtue. You need to be patient. But when you create a startup that mission-oriented, cutting corners, agile, flexible, thinking very quickly, identifying a problem and then finding the solution, that is what you need when you want to create a startup. Now, when you want to create growth companies, it's a bit more challenging because you need to be more structured and systemic. And what we have seen, again, that going back to the question of how the ecosystem has changed, we see that founders are now much more organized, systematic. Part of that is the activity of the multinational corporations that are active in Israel. A lot of them are Americans, but not just Americans. There are almost 450 foreign companies, tech giants, like the Googles, Intels, Nvidias of the world that have innovation activity in Israel. And you see that the engineers or the founders that started or worked at some point in these corporates, they learn corporate culture. And they learn how to implement strategy and KPIs and how to measure. And that is part of the growth and maturity of the ecosystem.
So Israel became kind of the perfect animal that can, they understand corporate culture, they can build up, but they still have the fire of startup, of ideas, still, burning from inside.
Yeah, definitely. I think that what we see, there are different urban myths about, take as an example, I don't know, and whatever corporate you can think of, that they have development sites all over the world and they're trying to solve a problem and they're sending that challenge to their different development sites and everyone suggests a solution. And only in Israel, what they get back is you're asking the wrong question. What you should be asking is this and that and whatever. And there are many stories and examples that show that. That, again, total disregard for hierarchy. The audacity to ask questions or to question the strategy that the organization has, that is what you said, that energy and fire. And that is why these companies still, they come to Israel and they double down on their investment in Israel.
And, and of course, it's impossible to discuss Israel's current tech landscape without addressing the events that happened over the past few years. So the October 7 massacre and the war that followed created, obviously, an unprecedented disruption. How did the tech community of Israel react to that?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with, of course, October 7th is one of the biggest national traumas that we have had. And from a personal level, we woke up that Saturday morning to the sirens and really didn't understand what was going on. Yeah. I thought it was a mistake. And then quickly over the day, we realized what was unfolding. The day after, of course, we told all our employees that they can work from home, but we had our management meeting. We went up on Zoom and had the discussions. And of course, we understood that this is going to affect the industry tremendously. Yeah. And we did two main things. One is we opened what we called Startup Nation Central Hub, like a hotline for startups. And we said, let us know what you're facing, what challenges, and we'll try to help you. We got over 500 applications from companies that basically said that they needed three things. One is funding, because some of the deals that were in the works stopped. They needed customers because orders were canceled, because people were afraid that the companies won't be able to deliver.
Of course.
And the third thing was employees. About 20% of the workforce was drafted.
In reserves.
Yeah. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, we got a lot of approaches from supporters of Israel from abroad. They say they wanted to help. And so we sort of gave temporary jobs to the whole organization. We had task managers or case managers that were tasked with helping companies and connecting them to investors, to American investors that are supportive of Israel and said that we want to help startups. And we made those connections and potential customers. And also there were a number of organizations that said that they have engineers that are willing to volunteer and help with coding for those that were...
For those that left.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's interesting. We have photos of our case managers having Zoom calls with CEOs of startups. And you see the CEO of the startup or the CTO or the VP of R&D, they're sitting on the Zoom in uniform, in the field, with their laptops, in between, doing what they need to do in order to defend the country. They're saving their company.
Yeah.
That is that impatient innovation spirit.
And how did the ecosystem manage as a whole?
Yeah, so that's one thing that we did. And the second thing is that we're familiar with, first of all, the ecosystem, the industry, and then also the history of the region. It's not the first violent cycle. It's definitely the worst that we have seen. But we know that the industry can perform. And so we looked at data. We're a data-driven organization. And we saw that in previous security or violence cycles that we had, the tech industry was able to deliver. Actually, the biggest violence cycle that we had before October 7 was in 2014 with Protective Edge.
Yes.
And a lot of the unicorns that we see today are companies that were founded during that time, either a bit before or a bit after, and they were able to raise funds and grow a company. So we came out with that campaign under the slogan of Israeli tech delivers no matter what. It was sort of an open source campaign that the industry took part in, and we had partners that worked with us on it. And perhaps you saw it was also posted on the billboard of the NASDAQ in Times Square. And that was the message that we delivered. That was the promise. After a year into the war, the end of 2024, we came out with our annual report analyzing the performance of the industry. And we saw that the industry was able to deliver on that promise and that actually investments grew by 20%.
Wow.
In Israel during that
the
time.
war.
Yeah, exactly. And when we look at investments in 2025, and the year isn't over yet, we see the first 3 quarters are almost as equal to the total amount of 2024. So
the entire year of 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So the tech industry really delivers. And we heard that also from the multinationals that I mentioned. So the headquarters of companies, their executive, looking at the R&D centers in Israel and actually are amazed by the fact that they are able to deliver on the deadlines and continue to perform. And some of them have actually increased their investments in Israel. Perhaps it's a good opportunity to mention the publication that was of NVIDIA, that they're actually building a major R&D center up in the north, and they plan to double their employment of engineers in Israel. So
their workforce.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are the factors? I mean, the Israeli tech sector has proven, as you said, right, to deliver, to be resilient. Why?
Well, one thing is what we discussed about that character, right? That they say that adversity creates capabilities. So we definitely have adversity. We have that entrepreneurial spirit in Israel. But there are also additional factors that come into play. First of all, most of the tech industry in Israel is software. Okay, so you are less affected by the security threat. Okay, people can work from home. They can work remotely. There is, of course, production and manufacturing done in some areas, but most of it is software. So you don't have manufacturing facilities that are in danger. We learned from COVID, from the pandemic, how to work remotely, hybrid, and so it was a continuation of operation that was going on, and demand wasn't hurt. Okay, because the tech industry, its market is global. It caters to the global markets. Yes. They weren't affected. Okay. So the demand was still there. And if you're able to deliver and perform, you're able to continue your business.
Yeah, and demand would grow, I believe.
Yeah.
And what factors contributed not only to the stability, but to the growth? I mean, despite, as you said, 20% of Israel's tech sector employees going into reserve. I understand, how sure, I mean, with resilience, it could stay the same. The numbers could not go down, but going up and in this magnitude. How did that happen?
So what we see, again, going back to the data, we compared the performance of the ecosystem in Israel to other markets, okay? And not just the past few years, but historically. And you see that there is much more correlation between the tech industry in Israel with the US market than in any other markets, or that that's the main thing that drives growth and affects the ecosystem. So basically, and I'm saying it just to simplify, but we're much less affected by the war than we are by the trends of the US market, okay? Not to say that the war hasn't affected, it definitely has. It's been very difficult. But in terms of the performance of the industry in Israel, it's much more affected by the growth in the US. And you see the US market growing and an extension to that, the Israeli market, because again, all the multinationals are in Israel. A lot of the investors are American investors, and they see their activity in Israel as part of their larger portfolio. And the demand and the target market is mainly the US market. So that is one of the major reasons for growth that we have seen.
And let's go back to Startup Nation, Startup Nation Central. So one of the areas where SNC plays an interesting role, as we say, on the global stage is innovation diplomacy. Yes. Could you please tell us about innovation diplomacy?
Startup Nation Central, its legacy core activity has been focusing on the ecosystem, helping the ecosystem grow, strengthen, understanding that is the major driver for economic prosperity in Israel. Following the signing of the Abraham Accords, we understood as an organization that the countries want to normalize relations with Israel. Part of their motivation to do that, a major part, not the only one, but there are geopolitical and security reasons, but is having that access to Israel's innovation capabilities. And that is, and very simplistically, I would divide it into three. One is sourcing technology that could help them address their needs. Two is financial and economic opportunities. And three is learning from the experience that Israel has. Many countries look at Israel and what Israel was 20, 30 years ago, or its tech industry, and they say, okay, that's where we're at, and we want to see the same thing, and so let's learn from that experience. And so we understood that. And on the other hand is we, as a nonprofit, non-government, independent and objective, embedded really in the center, Startup Nation Center, in the center of the Startup Nation. We understood this not just as an opportunity, but an obligation to be active in creating meaningful partnerships and collaborations that would create impact, that would help the diplomatic or the international relations between Israel and the countries in the region to grow, because this is what we bring to the table, and we want to make sure that it creates a positive impact.
So basically helping Israel's not only economy, but Israel's diplomacy in the international stage through tech.
Yes, but I would look at it more as a partnership, okay? Because we understand it needs to be a win-win situation, okay? It's not just helping Israeli startups grow. There's a new market, let's find. It's helping create partnerships and projects here. Let's take, for example, the UAE, understanding the national objectives, the strategy that the country has, and how Israeli innovation, be it technology, but also know-how and experience, could be integrated in a way that would create positive impact, that would help the country achieve its goals. And that, at the end of the day, would show what are the benefits of having the relations with Israel.
And you've been active, right, in the UAE for quite some time. Since the Abraham Accords, could you please share with us some of your insights? What do you think Israel should learn from the UAE? What should people here learn from Israel and from the Israeli culture?
So we talked about that impatient innovation. I would like us to learn a bit more patience. I think that looking at the national strategies here and the way that people, they're far thinking and how they achieve their goals and they work systematically to create that, that's something that we can learn from. That is also an opportunity for us because we understand where they're going, what they want to achieve, and we can adjust and find the right way to interact and engage. I think that what we bring to the table, aside from the solutions and technologies, is that entrepreneurship spirit. And we hear that. People want to learn from... They ask us, how come you have so many founders and so many startups? And I think that there's a lot that we can share from our experience, not so much in that culture, because cultures are different. But what are the ingredients that you need in order to create an innovation ecosystem of founders community, to create more startups, how the government could be more active, how you can encourage risk-taking, how you can demystify that concept of a small entrepreneur that wants to create a startup, and that failure is not necessarily a bad thing, that you can learn from it and that you can develop. And so there are certain traits that perhaps people can learn from, and I think that that's one of the major things that we actually bring to the table. And I think also that looking at the large-scale projects here and the funding models and mechanisms that the UAE has, that could work great with an ecosystem that's going through that growth stage, right? The scale-up or growth nation. That's the right timing for larger technology companies in Israel to find the right projects here and to be able to scale and find the right funding as well.
So this is the UAE is the scale-up nation,
exactly,
right? The place to come and scale your company, your idea,
and we see that,
heights.
And we see that happening. We see. I think it's not enough, unfortunately. I would want to see more companies leverage what the UAE has to offer,
and the vision,
and the long-term thinking. I think what has been going on in the region for the past 2 years has hindered that ability, but hopefully now with the ceasefire in place and a new reality in the region that I hope we'll see very soon, we should see more companies coming here, leveraging what the UAE has to offer, being able to scale up and grow. And with their activity here, they would contribute to the development of an innovation ecosystem here. They would bring that entrepreneurship spirit that hopefully will diffuse and infect the Emiratis as well.
And what tips would you give to an Israeli startup that would like to scale up here, that would like to start up shop here? What tips would you give them on how to interact here? Because as you said, the culture here is more patient, things take longer.
I think so the main thing is probably patience, but let's explain what that means. I say that perhaps a bit stereotypically, but just to make a point and very simplistically. We are used to doing business in the Western Hemisphere, mainly in the US market, where it's very transactional.
Yes.
And you get to know people by doing business with them. And my experience here, and what I've heard from others that have experience here, is that first you need to get to know people and then you do business. You build trust. If you build trust in the US by having a good deal, to use some terms that have been used politically here, but you by engaging with people, you get to know them and trust them. In the region, you need to build trust first and then do business. So take time, get to know people, come here often. You need to have the right resources that will enable you to visit often and to network and to get to know people, and then you'll be able to do business here.
So basically, one Zoom is not enough, right? One Zoom meeting is not enough in Israel. They have to come here and they have to stay here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Zoom meetings are not enough. You need to have face-to-face and get to know people. And it needs to be also an engagement, have coffee, go out, get to know people. And yes, more than once. You need to come here. You need to have a presence. People need to know you.
And Yariv, as someone who's been here for many times in this region and somebody who knows the Israeli ecosystem very, very well, what gives you optimism about the future? How do you see the future, first of all, both of the Israeli ecosystem and also of the collaboration within the tech field between Israel and the UAE? And what gives you optimism?
We just came back from an event that we did with the Dubai Israel Business Council, and there were many people there, Emiratis and Israelis and other expats, and that community coming together and talking about opportunities. That's an example of the goodwill and faith that people have in the possibility of collaboration in the region. I think that the fact that the relationship between the countries and also between the business communities have continued over the past 2 years. It really is a testament to not just the possibilities, but also the quality of the relationships that we were able to build in such a short time. And definitely when you look at the characteristics and you see there are many complementarities between the two business communities and the tech industry. And together with that goodwill and faith, I think that the future holds many opportunities.
And as a wrap-up question, what fields would you think that the Israeli-Emirati partnership would focus on in the next few years?
So you can't have a conversation without talking about AI. But I want to say AI is not a sector or a vertical. I mean, you would probably 3 years ago, everyone was talking about agriculture and food, healthcare. Cyber is something that's very strong. So there are certain sectors where, of course, there's a lot of activity going on in Israel, a lot of solutions that could be implemented here. And then AI is more of an infrastructure that creates opportunities in certain sectors. And I think that the way that the UAE is addressing AI, the long-term thinking of the infrastructure that they need to build here in place and the funding that that's being provided, that's a great opportunity for AI-enabled solutions coming out of Israel to partner and find the right partnerships here.
Fantastic. Yariv, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing such valuable insights into the evolution of Israel's resilience and of Israel's tech ecosystem. Clear that the work that you do in Startup Nation Central really assists Israel and the ecosystem to grow and to connect people, innovation diplomacy, and bring Israel and bring the region forward. So thank you. Thank you, Yariv, for the important work that you're doing. And thank you to our listeners. Stay curious, stay connected. We'll be back soon with more interesting stories and many more interesting guests like Yariv. Thank you, Yariv. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. One last tip, perhaps, to our Emiratis listeners. We talked about what Israelis need to know when they come here.
Yes.
I would just say to the Emiratis, the fact that we might seem a bit impatient and impolite, it's just be patient with us.
Yeah.
It's just the way that we have created our culture, and it's not. We don't have bad intentions.
We don't bite.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Yariv.
Thank you very much.